What's up, YouTube? Today, I'm going to be talking about a different topic than I typically do, and this is going to be talking about the natty status of Nik You, as well as the criticisms he receives regarding his natty status. Now, if you don't know, Nik You is a 18-year-old powerlifter slash TikTok influencer bodybuilder who is extremely strong for his age and weight. And before making this video, I did a little bit of research on him, so I'm not too well versed in his stats or anything like that. But put it lightly, he's extremely strong. Now, one of the biggest things I see regarding Nik You and his discussion of being a natural or not is the fact that he admitted to using MK677 in the past. I actually found a video of him like on a YouTube short of him admitting that, where he admitted that he took it and it really didn't do anything. Uh, it was like didn't do much to him. I forgot the exact words, but he said it didn't do much. Now, to speak about MK677 making it or delegitimizing his natty status is something I really want to make a point of. Nik You, after I did research on him, I found that he took MK677 and I forgot the exact numbers. Let's say he was deadlifting 700 before he took MK677. I found that his numbers did not go up significantly from taking MK677. And when he quote unquote got off of MK677, we don't know that for sure, his numbers eventually started going up. He admitted that he used MK677, but didn't get much out of it, which I will take his word for it. Why? Because I have done some personal researching using anecdotal experience and also understanding the science behind how this drug works, and its effects are going to be quite minimal. The reason for this is, put it simply, it's a secretagogue. It acts on the body's own endogenous system. Think about this. Human chorionic gonadotropin stimulates the Leydig cells of the testes, and I think the Sertoli cells for sperm production. We have seen in blood work, right, that people are, it's just that it agonizes these receptors or it agonizes this tissue to stimulate steroidogenesis. If you were to think about this, you're basically kind of hijacking your own endogenous production. You're not using the endogenous end product, you're using a precursor to get the end product. By using your own body's machinery, you're limited by your own body's natural peak production. People who take HCG aren't going to get testosterone levels above 1,500 nanograms per deciliter max. This is typically what you're going to achieve with TRT, and getting past it is just simply impossible because you exceed the production of the testes. Just like this, MK677, by acting on the ghrelin receptor, that downstream causes growth hormone release from the hypothalamus, causes growth hormone releasing hormone that goes down to the anterior pituitary, which causes growth hormone to be released, is going to be limited by the body's own endogenous organs, namely the anterior pituitary. The production you're going to get out, the growth hormone production you're going to get out of MK677 will be very minimal. From what I've seen online, it's equivalent of 2 IUs of growth hormone. Teenage boys can produce more growth hormone themselves while they're going through growth spurts, uh, more than 2 IUs. MK677, as seen in the literature and on anecdotal evidence I've seen on bodybuilding forums and things like Reddit, that it is very minimal. It's not going to have such an effect that it's going to directly cause an increase in your numbers. It's akin to basically just having a really good night's sleep. It's not going to really do much. If anything, it can just allow you to recover faster and therefore do more volume, but it's not going to directly cause an increase in muscle growth. We don't catch or pop athletes for doping with growth hormone. It's all the time erythropoietin in endurance running and anabolic androgenic steroids in strength sports. Growth hormone itself is not an anabolic hormone. It's not going to cause these huge changes that are statistically significant alone. Even taking huge doses of growth hormone is not going to cause this. Why do we see that teenagers who are going through huge growth spurts simply just grow taller and their organs get bigger and things like that, but aren't necessarily gaining huge amounts of muscle. Because growth hormone is not necessarily selective for myocytes, muscle cells. Testosterone, or anabolic androgenic steroid derivatives of testosterone, are much more selective in their action and their binding affinity to the androgen receptor. So we can infer from this that growth hormone itself, and it's a secretagogue. It's not even an exogenous growth hormone like, current therapies like somatostatin and Genla, genotropin, things like this. It's simply a secretagogue. You're limited by your own body's natural production, which would probably cap out at like 3, 4 max IUs, which is not enough to elicit a response. In addition, transition to my next point. This begs the question of, do things even matter if they make you natty or not? I was watching one of Nik You's videos. He pointed out that marijuana is banned in WADA. In D1 sports, NCAA, I'm pretty sure marijuana is banned. Other things that are banned are BPC 157, TB 500. If you're not familiar with this, these are basically compounds that accelerate healing after injuries, put it simply. Now, do these compounds themselves cause hypertrophy of cells or cause any sort of have any sort of ergogenic effect? No, they don't. They simply increase healing, yet they're banned. Why? We don't yet know why WADA has banned it. Soon, WADA may unban it, but WADA has found that a slight benefit that there is to be gained from such peptides or from such, drugs. The thing is, though, if you could somehow, hypothetically, work your way around this and not get caught, then does it even matter? What is the point of testing for drugs if you can work your way around it? With things like testosterone, right? You can, it's very difficult to, fake, being natural for testosterone test. Your testosterone epitestosterone ratio, which is the testosterone secreted by your testes and the testosterone secreted by the adrenals, are going to be severely skewed for people taking exogenous testosterone. This is pretty easily pick up in a simple test. But taking things like growth hormone, it's actually pretty hard to tell. I looked into this. You have to identify a protein called the PIIINP protein that is somewhat positively correlated with exogenous growth hormone use. But this is such an extreme test, and most, sporting events, NCAA, WADA, is not even going to really test for these things. Most of the things they're testing for are anabolic androgenic steroids. So Nik You could hypothetically be on MK677 and most likely not get popped. This begs the question then, like, does it even matter if he took MK677 or if he's still on MK677 or if he's on some designer steroid that isn't going to be detected? At the end of the day, if you're somehow passing the test, it doesn't matter if it makes you natural or not. And if it's getting him the results he wants while not killing him, does it matter? No. If I were to ask you, hypothetically, there's a drug, and I'm not going to say hypothetically. Mike Israel made a new video on this, talking about activin A and myostatin inhibitors being the new, form of steroids. It's on Renaissance Periodization. You can watch. I'll probably link it below. He basically said that these have very few side effects and are extremely efficacious and yield the same results as steroids. If I were to told you I would give you a magic drug that would put 10 pounds of muscle on you with zero side effects, would you take it? Of course you would. Unless there's some sort of noble natty who just likes doing things the hard way and being honest, you would take it. Now, for the people who just like being honest, more power to them. I mean, I guess they have honor. They want to do things the hard way. These are like the people who refuse to use ChatGPT. But if I were to ask the viewers of this video, do you use ChatGPT? And do you edit the things ChatGPT says to make it such that your teacher can't detect it? Of course you do. So how is that any different than taking anabolic androgenic steroids? You're being dishonest with your work, sure, but does the work matter? No. If the point is about breaking world records, the only thing that matters is the results. Do you think that when America tried getting to the moon and beating the Russians, they cared about the environmental hazards and the pollution being caused by the rockets and perhaps using some different experimental, perhaps slightly illegal techniques to get a rocket out of our atmosphere? No, they did not care. They just cared about the end result. So I think a lot of people in this comment section who keep saying he's not natty, or quite frankly, how do I say this, coping, really, by saying MK677 isn't natty, when sure, it might not be. Secondly, it barely has any hypertrophic effect, right? You'd probably gain more from just having an extra scoop of protein or sleeping an extra hour at night. Um, and they're doing this because I think that they see this guy's strength and it pains them. They can't fathom how somebody younger than them, probably, this kid's like 18 years old, younger than them, and funny enough, also Asian. He's half Asian, half Korean. Is stronger than him. So they love pointing out the fact that he takes MK677 to make themselves feel better about the fact that they're not that strong. When in reality, they know themselves that MK677 isn't probably going to elicit such a response, yet they still want to keep talking about it to make themselves feel better. This leads me into my second point of how people continue to cope. I noticed that in this comment section, people kept saying that Nik You's like 5'7", 5'6". When you can Google this, he's 5'10". It's literally stated when he broke the record for his weight class. He was 17. He was a minor, I'm pretty sure. When he broke the record for his weight class, I'm pretty sure he's 5'10". People love pointing this out, how he's like 5'7" or he's short, because it's a common trope that extremely strong people are short because it's easier to fill out your frame. The thing is, though, that I would like to discourage people from doing is coping, is saying that, well, it's basically sour grapes. It's basically people who, because they can't have something, they're going to diminish the person who does have that. They're going to point out the guy who hops out a Ferrari in his 40s and be like, yeah, sure, he has a Ferrari, but he's balding. They're saying the same thing. They wish they could have the Ferrari, but they can't. And so they're going to make themselves feel better by saying that those who have a Ferrari are balding or, are not attractive or whatever, or short. They're doing the same thing with Nik You. But if I were to ask you, the thing is, or if I were to, I'm going to say this, not ask you anything, that being short can convert an advantage. If you look at the world's best weightlifters, right, like the like Olympic weightlifters, they're all like in the I think 5'6" to 5'9" range. Why? Because you need to have a high power weight ratio. If you're taller, you're simply having weight added to your frame by just having more bones, having more fluids, having more needing more muscle to cover your limbs and things like that. That's wasted weight. In addition, Nik You's femurs, if you were to examine his femurs, like I can notice it, has very short femurs. He is built to squat. You can see this as he squats very upright. He quite frankly has a perfect powerlifting or weightlifting build. He, if he was any taller, it would be disadvantageous for him. And so, if you want to be good at anything, there always has to be trade-offs. If you want to be good at basketball, you can sacrifice on having some muscle mass and having short femurs and having better leverages for being taller. But if you were to ask me, right, you see, the people who are viewing this who cope saying Nik You short are going to be like, oh, you're probably short. Well, as someone who is 6'2.5", if you were to ask me, you can become a professional F1 driver. You're not going to be the best. You can become a professional F1 driver, but you have to become 5'7", 5'8", which is the average height of an F1 driver. I would say yes. Now, you could say I have privilege and I'm not aware of the benefit that height confers. Sure. But the truth is that in order to be excellent at something, you have to be hyper specialized in every single way. If I want to be a professional F1 driver, I need to be short because I won't be able to fit in the car. If I wanted to be an NBA player, you could ask me, hey, if I was like close to becoming an NBA player, you say you can become an NBA player, but you're gonna magically gain 2-3 inches of height, but you're going to lose 10 IQ or you're going to take 10 years off your life. I would say yes. The thing is that in order to achieve excellence in everything, you have to be hyper specialized. The people who are hating on Nik You aren't hyper specialized. Sure, while they might be 6 feet tall, 6 feet, 6'2", they're obviously not going to have a better physique. And the truth is, like, yeah, while you are taller, it's hard to have a better physique. But the thing is that that doesn't give you an excuse to not have a good physique. John Skywalker is a perfect example. Alexander Karelin is a perfect example. So the people who are above 5'10", or people who are even 5'10", calling Nik You 5'7", people who are above 5'7" or whatever, are simply once again, in an analogy, you know, coping by trying to make themselves feel better about the fact that, sure, Nik You's stronger, but he's short. I mean, if you told me if I could have Nik You's strength, but drop down to his height, I would take that shit in a heartbeat. Moving on to the final main point. Honestly, probably should have put this at the beginning of the video. Is Nik You actually natty though, aside from his MK677 usage? I looked at his blood work. Some things I noticed was sure his testosterone was at 600. What I can infer from this, is that he probably has extremely short CAG repeats. He probably like the androgens that bind to his receptors bind with such close affinity because there are few CAG repeats and they stay stuck there. They have I think a lower KDA, yeah, lower dissociation value. They're going to dissociate less. They have more transcriptional activity, which is rare for East Asians. He is only half East Asian though, and androgen receptor sensitivity does come from mother's side. His mom is white. I'm pretty sure she is at least. Um, so that's quite interesting. So honestly, it's not surprising his testosterone is only 600. He probably does have this extremely high androgen receptor sensitivity, along with probably having the RR allele, the ACTN3 gene. But that's for a separate topic. Um, the thing I did find interesting was, his LDL cholesterol I think was in 170 because his HDL to LDL was at 3.3. I can't pull it up because it'll close out my app that I'm recording this on, but his HDL is actually quite good in the 50s. The thing though that makes me actually question if this guy's natty is his ALT and AST. Now, if you don't know, these are basically liver enzymes. Um, Elevated liver enzymes can be caused by overtraining. Before we go into that though, his BUN and creatinine I think were pretty normal, which is actually kind of rare for someone who works out. Typically, it should be elevated because you're going to be breaking down a lot of proteins and you're going to find high levels of urea nitrogen in the urine. We didn't find that. What they did find was elevated ALT AST. And what I meant to continue saying is these are liver enzymes. The liver is responsible for breaking down many toxins and many things that we put in our body, drugs, even foods, things that we consume that require large functional groups to be broken down through glucuronidation processes and many processes I don't really need to go into on this video. Um, and this is interesting because while this is associated with things like just everyday things like vaping can raise ALT or AST, especially anything metabolized by the liver. Let me think of some drugs. Alcohol usage can cause this, but what we oftentimes see is that users who take oral anabolic androgenic steroids, because all oral anabolic androgenic steroids are 17 methylated or methylated at the 17th carbon, they have to be broken down in the liver. This requires enzymes, and enzymes can be elevated. So something does make me think that he could perhaps be taking some sort of dry compound. This could be something that's not an aromatizing compound, probably DHT derivative. Could be something like something dry, something like anavar or halotestin. Well, halotestin is a testosterone derivative, but these things that don't convert into estrogen. These are typically also fluorinated anabolic androgen steroids because turinabol and halotestin are both halogenated. Uh, Anavar has a ketone group that could probably prevent it from being broken down, as well as the fact it's 5-alpha reduced. What I'm what I'm saying by all this is that he he has these elevated enzymes, and it makes me think that he could perhaps, if anything, be taking oral anabolic androgenic steroids. The thing is, though, that they would still cause a suppression of his HPTA. If he's taking HCG, though, and he knows what he's doing, I suppose, he could keep his testosterone levels high while be getting some extra anabolic added effect. This is, I guess, the biggest telltale sign that he could be not natty. To be quite frank, personally, I don't think. I think he is natural. It just seems unlikely that a teenage kid would be taking such drugs. I mean, yes, he does abuse recreational substances, but it seems unlikely, and I don't think this is the case because the thing is that when he was I think 15, he deadlifted 765. That is top 0.001% or something like that. The fact that 15, there's no way he was taking anabolic androgen steroids at 15. If he did it once, he can certainly easily perhaps deadlift 900. Right? That's not too far off after 3 years of being alive and training. That's certainly naturally possible for someone of his genetic predisposition. Uh, And so I do think this guy is natural. The true test would be to look at his LH. If his LH is below reference range, then that means he's probably taking something, but uh, why would he then just be running 600 milligrams of testosterone? That would be stupid. He should be at least taking, be at 1,000, upper end of the natty limit. So really, most likely he's not on anything. And the thing is, I think people, need to remember as they close out this video is just because Nik You is such a genetic phenom and he's capable of these things doesn't mean that you can be this way too. Unfortunately, hard work doesn't always get you everywhere. Genetics plays a huge role. As I said, the ACTN3 gene, androgen receptor sensitivity, the fact he has a perfect build to squat plays a huge role in the fact that he's exceptionally shrunk. Um, so that's my 20-minute video as to why NICU's probably natural. In addition, why people are coping by criticizing NICU. I had to do this video with one take. I can't do cuts. I know there's a lot of uhs and ers throughout this video. Anyways, hope you guys leave me a comment. I hope Nik You sees this. If he does, best of luck at that meet.